I was going to talk about a really interesting structure or way of looking at experience or reality. It's really old, goes way back to, I think it goes back to the 1st century in the Samdi Nirmochana Sutra, and it's also found in the teachings of the Yogacara teacher Vasubandhu in the 3rd century. I think it's the 3rd century. And this particular structure is called the three kinds or 3 types of reality, or the 3 natures, also called the 3 own beings. And it's an interesting structure and not really easy to grasp, but yet worth reflecting on and worth thinking about, because it can really help us understand how we confuse ourselves, create issues or problems for ourselves. So these 3 own beings are taught in lots of different ways by different teachers and so on. And it hasn't been real easy for me to get a handle on it either. Probably because it's so simple. And so the way this breaks down is into these 3 natures are, the first one that I want to talk about is the imaginary nature, or parikalpita is the Sanskrit. Parikalpita, imaginary or constructed nature. Something that's made up. And this made up, imaginary, constructed nature is unreal. It's also impermanent, and it fools us. We actually take it for reality or for facts and so on. And this particular nature is, you might say, laminated to, or laminated to, or connected with the other dependent nature, or paratantra is the Sanskrit. So there's the first 2. And then the last one is parinishpana, which is the perfected nature, the fully accomplished nature. Lots of ways of saying it. I haven't really found a word I really like there that translates it out of the Sanskrit, and I haven't looked up the parts of the Sanskrit that show what parinishpana, what it really represents in Sanskrit. But it's basically saying that part of the 3 natures is the ultimate part, or you might even say the absolute. That's the part that we can't really see. It's hard for us to see that because we are grasping and clouded over by our belief in the imaginary nature, the constructed nature, or believing our thought patterns, you might say. Meditation seems to be a way, if you do enough of it, and if you do it, when I say correctly, I don't mean correct as opposed to incorrect, but I mean correct as in complete, a thorough job of it. Not one where we're just creating another state of mind to hang out in so we won't feel for difficulty. But a kind of meditation that actually examines, looks at, and sees what is there moment by moment by moment, without particularly adding on to it. In other words, constructing something else, or parikalpita. So the reason to break it down in these 3 ways, and this is a basic teaching of Mahayana Buddhism. You hear this talked about in Zen. The other basic teaching of Mahayana Buddhism is the Madhyamaka teachings of Nagarjuna in the 1st century. is Mula Madhyamika Karika, or Verses from the Center, which is a basic emptiness teaching. This particular teaching on the three own beings, or the three natures, or the three aspects of reality, can help us if we contemplate how that works, because what it's basically saying is that the imaginary nature is the one that grasps and rejects and posits an other, or imaginary selves, or individuals here, individuals over there. And the support for that seems to perpetuate that in its own way by providing a structure for that imaginary contraption to cling to or support it. That is the paratantra, or other dependent, dependently arisen. This depends on that, depends on that, depends on that, depends on this, depends on this, depends on this. As it has been said, things don't really come from their own side as independent entities. That everything, as the Buddha discovered, is dependently arisen, or just doesn't come on its own. It comes dependently on everything else. So that's the other dependent. This is dependent on this and this and this. Other dependent. So I wanted to read, I think I have that here. Yes, this is from the Trimshataka, which is from the teaching of Vasubandhu. And he says, this is translated by Stefan Haneker out of the Sanskrit. It says here, and I quote, "As long as consciousness does not abide with the realization that subject-object designations are mere representations of consciousness, the attachment to twofold grasping will not cease to operate." Very succinctly put. So twofold grasping is a grasper and something to be grasped. So subject-object. So as long as consciousness, what you're experiencing right now, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thinking, all of these impinging all at once, these consciousnesses that seem to have a separation from each other. As long as consciousness does not abide in the realization, as long as this awareness does not hang out in the realization that subject-object designations are mere representations of consciousness. In other words, when you see in your own parikalpita, your own imaginary nature, see that imaginary subject-object, me and others, are mere representations of consciousness, or mind only, as the Yogacara school. That's how we translate Yogacara, mind only. So as long as we cling to those designations and don't see that they're just mere representations of consciousness, and it's just consciousness itself. The way this is realized from the way it looks from over here, and also the way it is in the Zen tradition or mind-only tradition, Chan tradition, basic teachings are, it's already the case. You already are the Buddha. You already are awakened. It's already the case. Parinishmana, the completely accomplished nature, is already, Buddha nature is already here. You already walk in and out the door with it. It's already there, rather than something we have to kind of get to. Some teachings have us doing that, and partially, maybe because the early teachings, the provisional teachings of the Buddha talked about a lot of rules and designations and guidelines and so on.